Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 95. Some extra music is just a bonus on today's episode 95 on April 17th, 2019.
I'm usually really good about turning that off. I just wanted more attention drawn my way today.
We got all sorts of music on today's dance party.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. That was good. We covered it up well, though, guys.
I don't think anyone noticed.
Welcome to the show. We've got a literal ton of news this week, as always, on the Tesla Life. But first, let's get to some introductions. My wingman on the show, who's waving that he's not here, is Mr. Russell Frost. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm talking very close to my microphone.
Well, that's nothing new.
I am fine, Mr. Coughlin. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Looking forward to another show.
Those spinning wheels behind you they mesmerize me.
I gotta buy spinners now that I said that. Yeah, I don't have them. They're non-animated currently, so we gotta get some spinners.
Just like
going.
a little cheap clock mechanism to hook them up there.
I love that.
Next, our cohort in Chicagoland, Mr. Tony Schaefer. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, everybody. I am doing great. And I want to say that even though the Hawks are not in the playoffs, I'm still keeping an eye on it. And I was thrilled to see a couple of teams I won't name go down in 4 games.
Yes, indeed. Tampa Bay Lightning. Not saying anything, but it was interesting to see.
Because we don't want to embarrass the
don't alienate
Penguins.
anybody out there. Right. Next, Mr. Casey Green in South Carolina. How are you today, sir?
I am resting. Regenerating, if you will.
That's right. Casey was on the road quite a bit lately, and you can check that out, his travels on his YouTube channel, where he's done some interesting visits over the last few days, haven't you?
I have. Turned out the math said 2,042 miles in the span of 3 or 4 days.
Very good. Very good. And last but not least, Mr. Fusco in Missouri joins us this evening.
Yes, the Blues are still hanging in there, though we dropped 2 at home to Winnipeg. Damn Canadians.
Are you guys still talking about hockey?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, we are.
5 minutes into the show.
This is hockey playoffs, though, right?
This is big time stuff right now.
That's right.
Hockey's the one they do on the ice, Russell.
I thought, but there's nets involved, so I always get basketball and hockey confused.
He gets curling and hockey confused.
Well, what's the one in the field?
That's curling, I think.
That would be football.
That's
hurling. No. It's like field hockey, ice hockey.
Field hockey. I like that. The girls in the skirts.
That is one of the better parts of field hockey, I will say. Yes.
And there we go. We just lost the entire female audience. Thank you very much.
Just clicked off.
Right. Yeah. There she goes.
Number one story this evening is a little story about expansion or non-expansion at the Gigafactory in Nevada.
I like to think of it as expansion versus stagnation.
Stagnation. Okay.
All right.
So, depending on who you believe, you can believe any number of sources, Teslarati, Electrek, but this started with a story in the Nikkei Asian Review, which, if you're not familiar with it, is in some ways sort of like it's a big, huge news org in Asia, and they do a lot of reporting on Asian stuff, great reporting. So there seems to be a disagreement as to I quit, you're fired. But we do know that the end result is that no one allegedly is going to be putting any additional money and or equipment into the Sparks factory, and part of that is again that's sort of the dispute. Tesla says that they are still under capacity. That Elon has said that they can produce more power than they are producing. We're talking the difference, I think, between 24 gigawatts annually and 35 gigawatts.
Gigawatt hours.
Yeah. It's basically a third. He feels that they're underproducing.
Right, and Elon's point was that Panasonic is underproducing and constraining their ability to produce products, and Panasonic is like, well, you don't really have orders for more than what we're producing right now, so there's no reason for us to beef up the production capacity, which of course Tesla strenuously denies. Who do you believe?
I'm
Elon
still waiting on my
never lies.
Powerwall, and they said they could have made more Model 3s, but they didn't. So somewhere in the middle, towards Tesla's side.
Yeah, it's interesting because I on the Powerwall thing too. I think that's a good point. I think there's a lot of people still waiting. The queue's pretty long. Why aren't they building those things left and right if they've got all this excess production?
They use the same cells as the Model 3.
Mm-hmm.
They both come from the Gigafactory.
For now, they do.
For now, they do, exactly.
And that was one of my initial questions, and I always have to verify with you guys because I always forget. Are these the same batteries used in the Powerwalls?
They're the same basic formula, but they are tweaked for standstill use versus mobile.
Okay.
And yeah.
So
would
that'd
be probably more of the connection to the multi-cells together, like the management system? Is there any difference there?
I think the chemistry is different. So they're right. So you think about the draw and load of the Powerwall is much slower, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas you need instantaneous draw and instantaneously be able to put power into the battery packs of the cars. So they had to adjust the chemistry for that.
I wonder if the Powerwall is getting the car reject batteries, like the ones that still pass but aren't able to perform for a car.
Interesting. I don't know if they'd be able to balance those properly.
Oh, good point.
I very much want one of you to send me a link to this, to where it shows that Tesla's producing two different cells. I was completely unaware of that.
I had to go through Musk tweets, but yeah.
I'm just curious because I've never heard that before this very day. It was always my impression that a 2170 was a 2170 was a 2170.
Well, they all have the same can, but I mean, depending on if you're going to chemistry
too.
Right. And so if you say today we're going to make 25,000 of the standstills and tomorrow we're going to make 8 billion of the automotive, you can only make so many at a time.
Well, that would make sense. If they are separate chemistries, then you've got two different types of batteries in the same sleeve, but they are different.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if that's the case. I think we'll have to look into that, see if that is if we can prove that. But like you said, is it only come from Musk tweets or has been? We'll have to look.
It's probably been in the blog post too. Yeah. Let's take a look.
That's all I got, other than the allegations that the waste at the Sparks factory is crazy. We're talking about like 500,000 batteries a day get rejected.
Wow.
High standards. A couple of the other journalists had mentioned that they didn't quote any sources in this article, not even anonymous sources. And that was not typical for this publication, even though they are respected.
Yeah, allegedly.
It's funny you touched on the waste part there, Russell, because remember when the saboteur was in the news? He talked about a tremendous amount of waste happening on his watch as well.
Well, and the other sort of interesting sidelight to this is, as the factory in China becomes more and more of a reality, Elon's already said they're going to another supplier for batteries. So somebody else is going to get this formula, is going to get the proprietary contents, and is going to be producing batteries for them. Will they be 2170s? Will they be 18650s? Will they be something else? They haven't really come out, as far as I know, and said, we're definitely doing this. All we know is that Panasonic is not necessarily the supplier for the Chinese factory.
Right.
So that could be something along like a wedge that's being driven between Panasonic and Tesla, or it could be a bargaining chip too.
It's
Yeah, and Tony just posted something saying that the chat saying that third party for Powerwall and PowerPack. To the best of my knowledge, that is the Tesla 2170 cell that goes into all of those or both of those.
some of the power packs have been Samsungs, just because of the amount of and how quickly they needed them. So
Really?
some of the power packs are Samsungs.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
All right, so we'll look into that and see if we can get some information back on that particular item. And now Casey's remembered. Go ahead.
So I'm wondering how many of these have been recycled, and there was another one, but I forget that too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, Casey, that I wanted to bring up, because we talk about waste. Is it pure waste, or do they just go get recycled and then reused? I mean, there's a huge difference between waste and reuse.
Yeah, it's still a failure, but it's not a total loss.
Right.
Yeah. Next, later last week, there was a launch of a fabled rocket again.
Oh no.
And Mr. Fusco is going to fill us in on what happened.
So this is I'm a bit of a space nerd on the side when I'm not being a Tesla nerd. It's or a medieval sword fighting nerd or a photography nerd.
Space and medieval. It mixes well.
Well, yeah. Oh well. I make no excuses. This SpaceX finally had the launch. I think they had a couple days of delays of the first commercial launch of Falcon Heavy. Everyone will remember the first test launch was famous for having the Elan's Roadster as the cargo, and it is out somewhere beyond Mars's orbit at this point. Still orbiting our sun. But this was the Aerosat satellite launch, and they did have to push it back a couple days, but otherwise the launch went perfectly and beautifully. And for the first time in history, they were able to recover all three of the cores. So this is, as you'll recall, basically three Falcon 9 rockets strapped together, and this thing took off beautifully. The side boosters separated early on and came back and were able to land back at Cape Canaveral at launch pads. I think 1 and 2.
LZ 1 and 2.
Yeah, LZ 1 and 2. And it's just, we'll have the video shown up here. It's just a beautiful thing to watch. And the thing that was really different this time is, despite a very high deployment orbit for the satellite, the center core was able to come down and landed on the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You, some 500 miles out to sea. And that skipped, didn't it? And so it was very, very successful as that went. The only problem is I think it was a day and a half or 2 days later, for whatever reason, it hadn't successfully or completely strapped down the center core, and on rough seas, the center core toppled over on the ship and fell mostly into the ocean. Elan later tweeted that he thinks the engines are going to be salvageable, but instead of being able to relaunch that center core, it's going to have to go bye-bye. And other than, hopefully, I assume they'll be able to keep the grid fins as well, because those are very expensive titanium parts, and perhaps the engines will be able to be reused, but unfortunately not the whole thing. So yeah, that's a great shot of where everything kind of came down on there.
Oh, yeah. And they did hit the target, right? They hit what they were aiming for.
Wow, that looks painful.
That's basically what the Israelis did, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Same day.
They meant to make a crater on the moon. Okay? That was their intention.
And I
felt bad. For those that don't know, that the Israelis launched a rocket to the moon unmanned, and with the plans of landing it, and had a few technical difficulties that the computer scrambled to fix. But by the time it did, they were going way, way too fast, only about 150 feet above the surface, and it turned into dust on me.
So if you've ever played Lunar Lander, that's what the Israelis did. Yes.
Oh, so you're saying I know exactly what they did.
So one of the things was about that center core falling off the ship, the drone ship in heavy seas, was that they indicated that the SpaceX, they call it the octograbber, which is an arm that comes off the ship that's supposed to grab the center core and hold it in place as it moves across the water. Apparently was not fitted correctly to handle a center core. It could handle side boosters, but was not completely fitted to handle the center core, which was somehow different than a side booster. So that was part of the reason that it wasn't secured, and when the heavy seas hit, it just fell off the side.
So I'm sorry, but this literally is rocket science, and no one thought about that.
Well, they did think about it, but the modifications weren't ready in time, and it was more important to complete the primary mission than to try and save the center core. Not that they wanted to throw the money away, but the rough seas did.
Yeah, and the bungee cords were just not strong enough.
Right.
They used all the shoelaces they had.
Yeah. Before they came out with the octograbber, they had said, well, Elan had said in a tweet that they were going to weld the feet to the deck, and they have never once done that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That would have worked. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, literally, yeah. I mean, that would have saved the entire center core. You just weld it to the desk and to the deck, and then you just, break it and replace those few parts. But now they have to, yeah.
So one thing I did notice, we were watching it while we were hurling down the road, was so far the last couple of launches have kind of validated the Earth-to-Earth transit timeline speeds for the Starship. I mean, things go from Florida to Africa in just minutes, or Florida to the North Pole after circumventing the whole planet in like 45 minutes. It's incredible.
If you don't have weather delays or high wind shears, and I'm
still faster than the plane.
Maybe, unless you have a 2-day delay.
That would suck.
I mean, which is what happened with this launch, right? They had to delay it 2 days before they could launch because of various issues. So
I'm also curious how much that rocket will be able to deal with, because the Falcon 9s are tall and skinny, and they're much more susceptible to folding in half than that short, fat. Well, not short, but ratio-wise, it's much more robust.
Yeah, it's got a wider diameter, but for sure.
Yeah,
but the test hopper they're using is shorter than what the actual BFR
doesn't even have a nose
supposed to be, right? Like
it's
going to be completely different.
Oh yeah, totally different.
But it'll still be shiny, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all that matters. Next, just a short note that we heard that the early access program for Tesla is going to be extended to all full self-driving purchasers. So if you've purchased the FSD recently or with an upgrade, apparently you are going to be given the early access program at some point. And I guess this is just another carrot being given to people that have paid the money upfront or have upgraded, that they can now be part of the program that was previously just given to people that had referred a number of people. And before that, there was basically employees that were on it. So now, depending if you have full self-driving or not, you may be on that early receiving list. As Evan, you've been on that previously, right?
No, I've
you haven't?
No, and I'm kind of surprised. I don't know why, other than I'm a nerd, and and it may be where I live. I'm out here in the boonies, and I don't think the data that they need is necessarily going to be prioritized to this area of the country.
I've been tweeting him for months now, and I put thousands of miles a month on my vehicle. All solid data.
Good luck.
And you're waiting too.
Yes. I'm up to 20,000 and a half miles or so.
Wow.
Got it in September.
All right, I have there's one sentence here in this Teslarati article that is lost in the so many other paragraphs. This is the one thing that had me going with the early access program. So you qualify for the early access program, and you get pre-released software that you get to test, and then you get to provide valuable data back to Tesla. And that's awesome. And I'm all on board with this when it comes to gaming consoles and things. But the one thing it says here is weigh the risks of using imperfect software that controls your vehicle. At what and I'm I'm real world here. I'm not looking for an argument, but if something goes awry and someone's 2-ton Tesla plows into something and someone dies, will a prosecutor be investigating whether or not they're a member of the early access program and whether or not they were running pre-release software?
Any good prosecutor will be doing that, guaranteed.
Yes, but they will have no case because it still says hold on to the wheel. I've got a couple of friends in the program, and
no, I didn't. Okay, so hold on to the wheel. How did they prove they were not holding on to the? And what if they proved that they were holding onto the wheel, but the software thought it detected something and threw them into a concrete barrier?
And that's what I've always said whenever there has been one of these crashes. And they're like, oh, and so wasn't holding onto the wheel for 3 minutes before. I'm like, wait a minute, this thing is always telling me to hold onto the wheel.
Yeah.
When I'm still holding onto it. How do we know?
But again, this is where I'm not looking for an argument. I'm just saying, what are the ramifications, whether they're holding onto the wheel or not?
Well, I'm just saying that the company's going to say, oh, well, they weren't holding on the wheel for 58 seconds. It's not our fault.
So do you think that you'll have to sign a release?
You do, actually. Yeah. Okay. You have to type I agree before you get moved into the new bin.
So Tesla says, not my fault. Someone says, okay, but you killed my kid who was just driving home from work because your car crossed the median, ran into oncoming traffic, and took out a school bus full of 66 5-year-olds who were on their way home from kindergarten.
Holy crap.
They'll
Can
remind
you paint a worse picture, Tony?
They'll remind you that
Tony is therapist.
They'll remind you that children. They're orphans.
They'll remind you that the brake overrides everything on this vehicle, and that the steering and the motor is not designed to be overpowered by, or is not designed to overpower a grandmother with osteoporosis.
All right. So what you're saying is, regardless of how horrible a picture will be painted, everyone's just going to say, yes,
that's what a smart lawyer would do.
everyone's just going to say, okay, well, you're right. He didn't have his hand on the wheel, so it's not Tesla's fault. And the brake is supposed to override everything, regardless of what the software says. So Tesla's not at fault. Everyone just go ahead, be happy because, okay, I love Elan.
They're going to want some blood, but they're going to have been redirected back to the driver. It's like all the people who have had incidents. Like,
until it becomes full self-driving,
that's when they'll have a problem.
It is just an assistance thing, and the driver's responsible for everything.
It'll never be full self-driving.
Well, we'll have to see on Monday, won't we?
And speaking of that, there's a demonstration coming on Monday.
That's a talking pony show. There's a reason no one's allowed to have cameras and there's no press there, okay?
Well, hopefully the company will have cameras. They said they're going to live stream it.
It is going to be live streamed, so
this will be like that
something going on.
Edited full self-driving video from 2017, right?
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
We'll see.
They said some of the shorts are going to go there and try and cause an accident.
Oh God, please!
They did. Got to get off. Slam on the brakes.
Oh my God.
You know what?
There's going to be people parachuting in from
helicopters. If I had a 73 Pinto, I wouldn't intentionally go and try and cause an accident. Okay,
exactly.
Who's gonna? No.
They said they're going to do it. Some of the people in the short crew. So what I'm wondering is that terrorism or some other before the act of committing a crime, or will they wait until they actually are doing road ragey stuff and then get them? If they even follow through, I
don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. But
it would be.
These are trolls on the internet, Casey. That's what these people are.
Oh, no.
Trolls on the
But
internet
it's
losing lots of
true.
money.
They're not allowed to put it on the internet unless it's true. So they're not joking about this.
Yes,
Well, they do have a vested interest in seeing the price of the stock go down. So
certainly.
And
Yeah.
they don't have to put their property or themselves in danger to make that happen.
no, they don't.
That's why they're shorts. They don't have to be saboteurs. They don't have to be terrorists. They just have to sit and wait according to their own logic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not buying this bullshit that somebody's going to go ram a Model X during a demonstration to kill the stock price. All
If they-
Elon has
if
to
they
do
do, it won't be worth it.
Tweet.
Yeah.
He has proven that in the past.
He did that all by himself.
Or the SEC can send out the letter again. Yeah.
All right, next
This is
we've
a
got
Fury
a
show.
little
I should
story.
just
We got a story about the Model 3 opening order books in Europe and China to the more competitively priced Model 3. So the cheaper Model 3 is now available for purchase, not the standard range, mind you, one up from that. So the standard range plus is available in Europe and China. And they started that mid last week. So that's another demand lever they're pulling to see if they can get more sales of the car. And of course, there's many people that are waiting for it. Absolutely, in Europe and in China. So we'll see if that transitions to more boatloads going across the ocean, which is another thing that really we haven't seen that much reporting on. That's kind of dropped about people saying these ships are loading up and being sent out. Maybe it's because it's not interesting anymore that the first number of loads have left San Francisco and headed out, but I haven't seen much talk about that since, 3-4 weeks ago. So
and
we'll-
allegedly the ship that left this morning, left half loaded. Allegedly.
Well, now, are you
Allegedly.
talking about the ship or the captain?
I didn't check the captain. So, we'll see, right?
And in a somewhat related story, Model 3 standard battery dropped off the website this week as well, or late last week.
It got canceled.
So we had a story where it's no longer available. The $35,000 car is not available to be bought on the website, and they directed you to either a store or phone them
One of the remaining stores.
about ordering one.
Yes.
So that's interesting how that has dropped off the map.
They can upsell you if they get you.
Well,
two ways.
there's certainly been lots of stories about upselling. People that put in the order form for the standard range, all of them did get calls from Tesla employees saying, we could upgrade you at a discount. We could get you into a standard range plus at just a little bit more or pretty well the same of what you're going to pay for the standard. So there were a number of stories of people trying to be upsold or basically given the standard range plus at the same price.
That's
so,
a nice order you got there.
Yeah,
Shame to
like
put that
exactly.
on.
Anyone that's interested in a standard range, if that's what they want, man, put an order in. You might be put on the upgrade trail at a very competitive rate because that's what we've heard over the past 4 weeks, that's exactly what's going on.
Why does a supply constrained company discount?
Because it's going to cost them more to actually make a real standard range battery, because then they have to make a separate assembly and put it together versus.
So why don't they just software limit it like they did with the 40s?
Well,
That's what they're gonna do.
They do it, but I think Casey's saying is that some of the other components, like the cloth seats, the different center console, things that aren't standard. But there are also reports of people that have received the standard range car. So it's not like they're not making them. They may be making them very slowly or not as many of them, but the standard range car, the $35,000 car, is being delivered to clients as well.
Perhaps
And-
they. Go ahead.
And if it's the equivalent of if you were at a restaurant, they're spitting in your burger, so you might want to check your glove box.
No, I would say there was a party, and then some of the orders got changed from single burgers to double burgers, and you ordered a single burger, they gave you a double burger for slightly more price. Like instead of it being a $3 burger, instead of a $1 burger, maybe they gave it to you for $1.50.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's there are some things going on. I'm not sure why they've taken it off the menu completely now, the web menu, and said directed to a store or call them. Obviously, that person will be probably talked to quite a bit to get them to change the order to a standard plus.
Yeah, I would suspect that they had more. They might have expected more real standards, and then they actually got the standard range plus, just totally messed up their numbers, and so at least this way they gives them one last ditch effort to get the full amount of money from you. But apparently, right now, if you are adamant and you say no, they'll just software turn off all the extra features and send you a standard range plus with standard features.
Yeah, and another tip for buyers, if you're going to be buying a Model 3 and standard range is on the radar, put in your order about 3 weeks before the end of the quarter. And all sorts of deals apparently happen at that point too. About color switches and all sorts of things can happen as you get near an end of a quarter with Tesla. All sorts of deals are available apparently that we've heard about. But well, I guess we'll have to see as this rolls out a little further. Is the standard range $35,000 vehicle off the list forever? Will it be completely chopped? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But
I bet you it comes back right before we get advertising.
Right before we get advertising. Advertising in what way?
Like before they're forced to advertise on TV. Like their last demand lever will probably be to bring back the real standard range.
Don't know. I don't know what it'll be. But we will see. We will see.
Oh,
another demand lever that was pulled, of course, was the this week or late last week. It was announced that the Model 3 now can be leased in the U.S. So this gives another push to it, where people now, businesses and such that can write off a lease completely, they can get involved with the Model 3, whereas before it was strictly a purchased item. But here's the caveat to the lease. Which is really interesting, that after the lease is over, most leases you've got some sort of residual value that you can purchase the car for or return it on lease. In Tesla's case, they say none of the cars that are leased will be sold at a residual value. The company will take them all back. And they're doing this in order to create or add to their fleet of autonomous vehicles. So they're saying that all these leased vehicles, when they come back, will become part of the Tesla network, and they will be used in that particular case. So we haven't got to full autonomy yet, although Elon's threatened it now for quite some time.
5 years?
He's saying by
Someone
the end of the year,
resuscitate Russell.
It's going to be there. This is another step up on that, saying, you know what, we're going to need the cars. So you know what, when they come back from lease, they are being all taken in by the company and used as part of the Tesla network.
Okay,
I think this does two things. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Casey.
I think this does two things. First, it gives them 3 years to figure out self-driving. Because if they don't, they're sitting on a mess of cars.
Your item number 2 better be pretty good.
So my item number 2 is that it also protects their residual values, because nobody can buy them when they're done. So you can set the residual at whatever you want. And
so your second argument is they're going to play De Beers with cars?
yes.
You're going to have a warehouse of Teslas that they're going to control the market price.
It also gives them 3 years to buy some property to store the cars.
There you go. Now that's a better argument. That's what I believe.
In tunnels under the Gigafactory.
In tunnels. There
From
we
the
go.
boring
A tie
company.
into the boring company.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Tunnels full of Model 3s. That might be a show title. I just so let me just you guys help me with this because I'm clearly not understanding it. So I give Tesla $3,100.
Mm-hmm.
I pay them $500 a month for
Mhm.
36 months on a distance limited lease, like all car leases are. Okay, which means I'm going to pay for about 2/3 of the value of the car,
Mm-hmm.
which is really high on a lease.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then at the end, Tesla's not going to even let me buy it out. They're going to take it back
Yes.
because they're going to make a fleet of robo-taxis out of them. Now, wait. So all the people that bought FSD packages with their Model 3s who were like, I'm going to earn up to $10,000 a year running a robo-taxi while I'm at work are going to have to compete against the manufacturer?
Well, they said that they would only deploy their fleet in cities where there's not enough coverage.
Sure they will.
Yeah.
Okay. I got nothing else. I just asked these questions.
Well, I mean, mine's a Model X, so I mean, you're going to take a Model X or a Model 3 if they're nearly the same price. I would take the extra room.
Okay, if we're gonna,
How
if
does that figure in?
if we're gonna argue hypotheticals, I'm taking the Model Y.
Okay.
And I found
Tony,
some
why are you
space.
showing an airline
hobby.
graveyard?
Yeah, so somewhere between these planes, I think there's enough room to store a fleet of formerly leased Teslas. That's all I'm saying.
Well, they
There's
can also
room.
take all the battery packs out. They know exactly how they were used.
I don't know. This is an interesting twist on leasing, that they are going to take all the cars back and make them into a robo fleet of Ubers, basically.
Invasion
Considering
of the robo Tesla.
like Casey said, they have 3 years to figure it out. If you listen to Elon, it's less than a few months to figure out. But you're right. The cars are not coming back from lease until 3 years from now.
So got to grease all the right palms.
Greasing palms. Yes.
Why do I think I keep getting this image of Elon Musk creating this army of robo Teslas that are going to crash into the SEC headquarters?
Well, I mean, he did say his nightmare was having us wake up and find all of the cars in Rhode Island. So perhaps that gave him an idea.
This would be downtown New York at Broadway and 54th.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to Monday the 22nd for this this full autonomy walkthrough. That will be live streamed. It'll be interesting.
I will say this. Okay, I'm not going to go with the robo taxis, but if Tesla were to say, you lease the cars for 3 years, we get the cars back, and we're starting our own rental program.
Turo.
That I would believe. And if they did the rental pickups next to the superchargers, that would be awesome. That I would believe. So that to me is a better business model for all the used cars that are possibly going to start flooding the market.
So,
Tony, you've got lots of time to put in your application to Tesla to get this done.
All right, that's it.
They've always promised us fully loaded loaners when they do service, and that might finally make do on it.
Yeah. 01010 in the chat mentioned that same thing that I've been thinking. They can always change their mind on this, and
Yep.
Tesla's shown an incredible ability to change their mind at very short notice, and they have 3 years to do so here. So they very well may decide.
They can flip flop back and forth on this many times within 3 years. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely true. Russell, I'm going to ask you to maybe look up the Matrix story as I go to this story. See if you can throw up that video later. But,
if I can throw up, I can definitely throw up.
You can do it.
I am
all over this show.
You got it. I will take care of that.
The next story is about Elan appearing on a podcast talk about AI and some other items. It was interesting. I listened to the entire podcast. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of discussion about AI, about driving autonomy, about different parts of what Elon believes autonomy will mean to Tesla and how it will be implemented. But one of the most interesting comments made about it was about the appreciation of value of the Tesla car, that it's gotten to the point. Now, everyone knows that when you buy a car, it's a depreciating asset, which means the value plummets over the time that you own the vehicle.
As soon as you drive it off the lot.
Elon mentioned that he believes that the difference with Tesla is that it will become an appreciating asset over time, which I cannot believe. I'm sorry. Like, with the number of cars that are being produced, the upward spiral of the number of vehicles that are being released by Tesla, and the normal economics of owning a car and the wear and tear on a car, I cannot believe that it'll ever become an appreciating asset. It may hold its value better than other cars that depreciate, but what a statement. I couldn't believe he actually said that. There's been no correction. The story has been out for since last Friday, I believe. What do you guys think? Is this just crazy talk?
Yes. So how quickly is the price on full self-driving going to be rising every month? That would make it appreciate.
It still wouldn't. It's still, you couldn't catch up with it with that. There's no way.
A car is an appliance. An appliance is a purchase. It is not an investment.
Correct.
It is not an investment. Say it with me.
You're not talking to me. You're talking to Musk.
I'm talking to anybody who says, well, clearly he knows what he's talking about. No.
Well, I was watching a special the other day, and they were talking about how much Uber and Lyft have invested in those little scooters. And I think this is the same thing. Because the scooters are depreciating faster than they expected.
Expensive. Yeah,
but it's a lot more expensive than scooters. Yes, but the same
scooters were all purchased on investor money,
right? But
that was brought in to flood a market to possibly capture the market and hold it as theirs.
Right, but the point there is that they are depreciating and breaking faster than they had anticipated, so their numbers are all wrong. So if you are buying all these cars and going to keep them in the company fleet, and maybe their numbers aren't right.
I think there's more than that that's not right in that statement.
I've had people tell me that they wanted to buy an electric car because they were not going to have to buy gas and they would have less mechanical, and they referred to it as an investment because of the money they would save. And I was like, no. You know what side of the argument I'm on. You should buy an electric vehicle, but it's not an investment. You're simply not losing as much, but it's still a purchase.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Even the factory itself is a depreciating asset. I mean, they write it off over 10 years? Yeah, that's actually worth more when they sell it, but on paper, it's a depreciating asset as well.
Yeah.
And it's not even getting miles on it.
Anything besides
land,
really, like a house, is typically a depreciating asset. If it's used, it depreciates in value.
Yeah. Even if someone said, and they are a professional taxi driver and they go from, whatever, the Lincoln Town Cars or whatever to a full EV, it's still a depreciating asset. It's just a better business decision.
There you go. Because if you offer me taxi cab A and taxi cab B, same everything, except B has 1 million miles and A has 500,000 miles, I will pay you more for A than I will for B.
Yeah. So I think we can all agree that this statement is false, no matter how you slice it.
This may be Elon's first incorrect statement.
I'm curious how he will, if he will say he was wrong or if he will how he will justify it after
No,
this.
he's just gonna let it linger.
He's not going to say anything.
Have you
said he's wrong
ever
before.
met Elon Musk? I mean,
He
have
called-
you ever
he called-
you
he
know
called
anything
my
about him?
Fabergé egg. He said they had hubris, so he's willing to admit he's wrong.
He's had 4,000 tweets since this came out. I mean,
Yeah, I'm willing to bet we're not going to hear about this again in an apology light at all. No,
No.
I don't think so.
And any light
Well,
from Elan.
But before our next story, if you're watching this our video today for the first time, please press that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Hey, it doesn't cost you anything. Just give us a thumbs up. That gets us in front of more people. And press that little bell if you'd like to get alerts when the show starts. But so do those 3 things for us. That would be great.
Yeah, if your like button is not blue, click it. If your subscribe button is red, click it. If there's a bell and it doesn't have the little motion lines next to it, click it.
and if a problem comes along, you must click it.
Oh my gosh.
I can't do this show anymore.
Oh,
look at
you think we would have this down after
Good.
95 shows?
Yeah. It only took 95 shows to beat it out of me. So I mean,
If all your buttons are the right colors, share this video with a friend.
Thank you, Casey. Yes. Our next story is a quick video clip that we pulled from the internet. A YouTuber had placed an interesting storyline of Elan in the Matrix taking on all naysayers. And you can see the naysayers are all branded nicely.
Elon's.
I have to say, I love the way his face changes.
Yes,
That's the best part.
It's classic.
He's got Mars in his glasses.
Yeah.
And the facial expressions as he moves from piece to piece.
And then the hedgehog.
So
The hedgehog. I know. I just got it.
So Elon's battling the corporates here, and if you watch closely, Jeff Bezos shows up, and the SEC shows up at one point, and of course all the different
Mr. Lutz.
BMW and
like
Jerry Clarkson.
Ford and GM, everybody gets in on the action.
fake
And of
news.
course,
Fake news.
and now he's having a good time. and then just like in the Matrix movie, Elon prevails, warps time, and jumps out of there.
And
So-
SpaceX's himself out of there.
Well, just a fantastic video. If you get a chance, please watch it. Listen to the sound. It's a great watch, and we wanted to share that with you here this evening. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about Century Mode, and
yes.
Evan's going to tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so this was another recent story. So we had at least one bad guy already busted for breaking into a Tesla Model 3 that had Sentry Mode enabled. And just this past week, we got another report. And this one's particularly tasty because it involves a rather smarmy politician named Judge Willie Singletary, who was backing his Cadillac Escalade out of a parking spot with little skill and managed to tag the rear end of this Model 3. He realized what he'd done, stopped his car, pulled forward, and the video shows him getting out and inspecting the damage. Do we have that video or no?
No, we don't.
Oh,
He gave the car quite a massage.
And
Yes.
he was rubbing.
He tried to
mark
rub
on
it
the car.
out.
Yeah.
and decided you can see him kind of looking around and checking stuff out, and then eventually he just gets back in his Escalade, backs out, and drives away.
He
But-
was a traffic judge.
Yes, a traffic judge. He's
run.
quite recognizable in the video. I think he's wearing a campaign button.
Yeah.
Because he's running for a new office.
Right.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I've got a picture here. Here he is, clearly inspecting the damage, and the Escalade was rented.
Oh,
And so the guy recognized him and called him, and he denied the whole thing. And then he's like, yeah, but my car has cameras, and
You're on
clearly
it.
this is you. And so he then admitted it, and then the police got involved. And yeah.
Did he get permission to massage that car?
Ooh.
yeah.
And no, he was not putting a post-it note that said, I hit it here.
No.
Right.
Here is my insurance number.
Mhm.
Just what he didn't do.
Okay, and 0 and 0 and 0 has the lead for show title. Rub it out.
Rub it out. Here we go.
That'll buff out.
Rub one out.
I think Lee had the lead up before. I didn't write it down. I was like, oh, Stagnation
Yes.
was, or that was also 0 and 0 and 0. But yeah.
Our binary friend is great with show titles, is he not?
He is.
So this is yeah, you're right. Evan, it's particularly juicy just because it's not just some random person who hit a car. It turns out the dude's running for office. He's been convicted of other things before.
And he's a traffic judge, or former
And,
traffic judge.
and
Former
it's
traffic judge who knows that hit and run is no bueno.
yeah.
Yeah, you would think a judge would be, have a few of those boxes checked that they knew what they were doing, but nope, not the case. Not the case. Our next little story is there was a group of about 16 different Tesla owners decided to get all their cars lined up in a parking lot and have the Summon Olympics to see whose summon was faster than everyone else's. We're not even going to show it because it's just kind of silly. But all these owners lined up across the parking lot from the cars, pressed the summon button at the same time, and some cars lurched out of the gate and slowed down. Other cars didn't lurch at all; they just sat there. There was quite a mixed bag of these 16 cars as they attempted to go across the partial parking lot to their owner, which wasn't, it was from maybe 2 car lengths away. So it wasn't even all that far, but kind of silly, but interesting to see if you want to look it up on video. It's out there if you want to see. But a better story, I think, is there was some update from Elan about the Model 3, about its battery technology and how it's been built to commercial standards, as he described it. That the car's battery apparently has been built to a 1,500 cycle standard. And a cycle is from 0 to, from a low battery to a full battery is what a cycle is. If you're like 50% of the battery burned and you fill up to half, you haven't done a full cycle. You've done a partial cycle. So Elan described 1,500 full cycles will be able to be performed on the Model 3 battery pack before it starts to see an area where you wouldn't typically have to replace a battery because of degradation. So what's interesting is this amount of cycles is going to equate to somewhere between 300 and 500,000 miles on any given car.
Yep.
And
long range rear wheel drive, that it would be 487,500 miles.
And that is before you start seeing degradation.
I would think that there's some degradation involved with it, but not to the point where it would have to be replaced, which I believe is set at 70%.
Right. And that's even what I'm getting at is, at 470 odd thousand miles, now you're starting to really notice it, and you could probably still go for another 200,000 miles or something if you're, but we're talking
a long way down the road. We're talking probably the point where you would be fed up with the car because you haven't changed cars in 2 decades.
Exactly.
That you wouldn't want the car anymore. You'd want to move to another vehicle because you're bored with it.
Right.
Like,
And
we're
you
talking-
won't be able to sell it because the car depreciated in value. So much,
We're
nobody
so
will buy it.
So
But you'll
on
have
that
to
same
keep driving it. Yes.
on that same Model 3 long range rear wheel drive with the 325 mile range and 487,500 miles on the clock, assuming we use 70% as the I don't need this anymore, it would be 227 and a half miles of range. So you can still make it between all the superchargers.
Absolutely. And here is the topper of the cake of this is also Elan indicated that the battery setup, the modular setup of the battery, it's got 3 trays where the batteries are set up in. He was saying that you could still even remove the cells, replace one of the trays with a new unit, and that unit would cost somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000. So the replacement of the battery, even after a longer period of time, is going to be economically viable to replace it with a new battery if you want that car to go even further.
Where are those batteries coming from?
Sparks, hopefully. Or China.
So I did the math here. I just crunched it. And what I did was 450,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
If you average 12,000 miles a year,
Mm-hmm.
37 and a half years.
And the car will be worth $10 million after appreciation.
It's an appreciation.
They're appreciating assets because everybody gets one. And then actually nobody can afford cars
maybe
anymore.
we were wrong. Maybe it does become an appreciating asset because you never sell it.
Right.
So
You
you
hand it
can
down
never know
from
the
kid to
true
kid.
value. You never sell the car.
This
You
is
have
my
no
great
idea.
grandfather's car.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you literally did just buy your last car.
So just like a house, you buy it, you live in it till you're dead, and that's it. We could have
Exactly.
just proven ourselves wrong, guys.
With math.
So yeah, there's I'm looking forward to this. That is a long time to have a car.
Yeah.
And to, have it operating. Obviously, you're going to have maintenance on the car, just a lot less than a gasoline car. But man, those are some impressive numbers. If the cycle number is true, hell, if the cycle number's half true, it's still an impressive amount.
Yeah.
So if they do that, they would need to then give us upgradable computers and all the other parts are replaceable. So we could continue to use this thing for the full 40-year lifespan before it needs maintenance on the battery.
Or, you know what? Here's a whole nother thing. In 10 years, they modularize so that you buy the car and you take your old battery and just swap it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There you go.
Maybe. I would think the technology for supercharging would continue to improve, though. Everybody's going to want a brand new battery that charges faster and gets more range.
Right.
Most certainly would want to upgrade along that route. Absolutely.
Yes. But
Absolutely.
if you could, drop the price of buying a car by 25 or 30%, I'm throwing out numbers, and you're going to give the car, you're buying a car for the kid. And you say, here, take the battery and throw it in there. That'll save me several $1,000s and I'll buy a new car.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at all the different possibilities, and that is one of them.
Yeah. So maybe they don't. I appreciate. Maybe they just don't depreciate as fast once they
Because you
realize
never
the maintenance.
sell it. Interesting. Our last story of the night. Yay! Everybody says we've got a story about Elan opening his mouth again, talking about production numbers, and this one didn't get a lot of press, which I'm kind of surprised about. Where he indicated that Tesla is going to be building 500,000 Model 3s in the next 12 months. And there was nothing. Nobody really questioned it, or there was no big hubbub about it. Basically, isn't that what happened with the SEC problem?
That's exactly what happened.
Why did that not happen again?
Because right now they can't get him. He has to come to the agreement first.
Because he kicked their ass. Did you not see the video?
So he did the same thing he did last time. He reiterated stuff that they'd already talked about at the last shareholders conference, and this time nobody tried to hold his feet to the fire about it. So
that's the weird thing. Why was there not the same uproar that happened the last time?
Because if they brought that crap to the judge again before they did their agreement, she would not be happy. And you don't want a pissed off judge.
There's nothing stopping them, Casey, from having a hubbub about it and not bringing it to the judge yet.
There is
They could be freaking out about it right now and screaming about it all
day.
3
days like last time. It took them a while to realize what happened, even though they were watching every tweet.
Well, it was last week, so we've got 3 days on it.
That's true.
So I don't know.
And speaking
Anybody
of
in the chat room's got an idea as to why that is, please let us know. But
you say gaslighting.
Is there lithium lighting? I mean, it doesn't really.
Lithium lighting, exactly.
Speaking of lithium mining, there's a new lithium mine opening in just a few miles away from me in North Carolina.
Okay. And lithium is certainly a resource that's being used in more and more often. So definitely need more of it. Well, that wraps up the show. So let's say some goodbyes, and we will move on with another successful show. Casey, we'll start with you.
Oh, I was just waving goodbye, but yes. So I just took a 2,000-mile journey. I've got a lot of great content coming for you guys on my channel for pre-recorded stuff about mostly Tesla. But there was a 48-minute Rivian video. I'd appreciate if some people would write some stuff about it so we can talk about it. And that would be at youtube.com/Casey Green, KACEYGREEN.
Very good. Very good. Mr. Fusco, do you have any parting words for us?
No. Your Honor.
I plead the
fifth. Very good. Tony Schaefer, what have you got for us?
Hey, I want to give a shout out to all our Canadian friends, and I'm wishing everyone a safe and happy inaugural 420 in 3 days. Enjoy it, but enjoy it safely.
They're all oblivious, Tony, because they're already into it.
So do you have infused Timbits yet? Is that a thing?
Not yet, but man, that is a great idea.
It's in the poutine. I know that.
Timbits?
Timbits, man.
You don't know what a Timbit is?
Correct.
Oh, your life is so impossible.
Oh my gosh. You got to get closer to the
donut
border.
holes?
I don't even know how to spell this.
Timbit is not a donut hole. You need to get that thought out of your head.
It's a Timbit. Timbit.
Oh my God. Google it.
Mr. Frost.
I got nothing. Oh, hey, thanks to everybody out there in the chat room. Thanks for everybody watching and listening. And you know where to find us. No, that's bullshit. At Facebook, we're at the Tesla Life #1. YouTube. Is it the Tesla Life?
Tesla Life Show.
Yay! YouTube.com/the Tesla Life Show. Go there and listen to our friend Casey Green about subscribing and setting up those notifications so that you know when we're creating new stuff for you. We do this for you. So
we're trying to get to 1,000, and it will really help us to get to that number. And then
actually, we got to 1,000.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, wrong show. Wrong show.
So if you and your friends can unsubscribe, we can cross.
Don't listen to him. Get friends and have them subscribe.
Know what he's talking about. we certainly want to thank everyone for reaching that goal and going higher. And if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. That helps us in the ratings and gets us in front of the eyes of some new people. So please do that. You can also follow us through the week at our Twitter feed at The Tesla Life. And we would like to thank Lee Moon for using his music every week. Thank you so much, Lee. We really appreciate it. And with that, we'll wrap it up and say we'll see you next time and find out what's going on in the Tesla life. Good night, everybody.